Hello, hello, all of my beautiful black and brown people, and hopefully some of our allies too. I am so excited today to talk to a dynamic young lady out of the city of Memphis, Tennessee, which is also my hometown, like a local celebrity. At this point, even a national celebrity. She's been winning awards all across the country. Just so excited about this young lady, State Representative London Lamar. I just want to brag on you for a minute before we actually get into it. The purpose for this event, this virtual event, I hope everybody is at home in quarantine. I know in the state of Tennessee, we getting out there a little bit too quickly. But London has a robust platform that's really centered around mobilizing young people, really focusing on those issues that are most important, that are really the top priority for millennials. A lot of times we get left out of the conversation, but London definitely represents us very well. So tonight we're actually going to talk about two things. So one, we will talk about some of her work around environmental justice and focusing on lead prevention in schools. So we know that in the wake of the Flint water crisis, it really rocked the nation and made everybody wake up to the fact that y'all is lead everywhere, not just in water, not just in schools, all around us. So really focusing on how we can really create lead-free environments, especially those black and brown environments that are hit the hardest. So with that, I am going to transition to the lovely State Representative London Lamar. Hey, London.
Hey girl, sorry, I'm like telling everybody to head to my IG right now. I'm putting it on Facebook. Um, hey everybody, how y'all doing? I'm so excited to be on this IG live with you, Tracy. Girl, you know you my girl. We've been rocking for a little minute now and been getting stuff done. So before
You know
I
me.
get into
You
talk
know
about
Black women.
myself, I want to talk about you for a quick second, just shout you out everything that you're doing with Black Millennials for Flint. The lead waters in school, environmental justice is so important. So Black Girl Magic, shout out to you for all the work that you're doing. The community really appreciate you. And thank you for bringing me into the work that you're doing. And so I'm so grateful for that. So I'm State Representative London Lamar. I represent District 91 in Memphis, Tennessee. That's parts of Whitehaven, South Memphis, Cooper Young, Parkway Village, just a little bit of everything on the west side of the city. But got elected in 2018, and I'm the youngest legislator in the current General Assembly. And so doing a lot of work around schools and just making sure we can make our community a better place. And to me, environmental justice is one of those things. Hey, Alex. Hey, Dad. I see my folks starting to sign in. Hey, everybody. So I'm really excited to be on here and talk with you about lead in schools because it's so important. And so I want to first begin with you send me some questions, but I think one of the questions I want to answer, that's number 3, want to kind of jump to the top, and why I decided to join you in this fight for leads in schools, and why I decided to make it a part of my legislative platform before we go into the nitty gritty of the bill, is because when I ran for office in 2018, I ran on a platform of 3 things: strong schools, healthy families, and safe communities. Those were the 3 criteria that I promised my district that I will always advocate for. And so when I think about making sure our schools do not have lead in the water, that makes a strong school. Making sure we don't have lead in the water produces healthy families and healthy children. When I think about not having lead in water, that means our communities are safe. Our school buildings are safe facilities where our children can go and learn and be able to drink the water. And sometimes some of the only clean water they have throughout the day. And so, so when you came to me with the bill, I was like, this is exactly the things that I advocate for as a legislator. And I promise my district I will continue to push for in Nashville. So let's get into it. So me and you came up with a bill called HB 2017. And what it does is you all partner with Mayor Lee Harris who was then State Senator Lee Harris back in 2018 to establish a program for lead in schools. And you all pushed a bill and passed one, was called SB 619. Now I'm about to get technical from the people watching, so bear with me for the next 5 minutes. I'm about to go into the nitty gritty of this piece of legislation. So back in the 2018 legislative session, before I came in, you all passed SB 619. And what this did was it established that all school districts must develop a policy to test drinking water sources in school. You all established that there has to be some type of testing for lead in the schools, a program. It has to be. And what this bill establishes that the local LEAs have to put a plan in place or some type of testing mechanism in place. It was to be tested in schools that were constructed prior to January 1st, 1998. If the results are 15 parts per billion, but less than 20 parts per billion, the school shall conduct testing on an annual basis until you get under 15 parts per billion. So what that means is if you test over 15 but under 20, you just got to keep testing every year to make sure you basically are under 20 until you get under 15. But if you do test over 20 parts per billion, the drinking source had to be removed. The Department of Health and other state agencies have to be notified. The school must notify the parents and guardians within 5 business days, and they must retest the lead levels every 90 days consecutively. That is what was put into place in 2018. So what our bill is doing, HB 2017, is amending this bill that passed in 2018. And so I'm going to go through the differences between my bill and the bill that you all passed 2 years ago. So what my bill does is amend it by saying the Department of Education, with assistance of the Department of Health, shall establish a program for testing of water for lead contamination in public schools, public charter schools, and daycare facilities. So what that means is one is going to establish a unified statewide program. The original bill put it on a local school district to establish a program. This bill requires the Department of Education, in conjunction with the Department of Health, to establish a unified, across the board, statewide program for lead testing. It will also now include public charter schools and state-approved child care facilities. The original bill did not establish charter schools and child care facilities, but now my bill will include those facilities in ensuring that there is proper lead testing. The program implemented must incorporate at minimum biennial testing of lead levels in drinking water sources at public schools, public charter schools, and child care programs operating in facilities constructed prior to January 1st, 1998. Utilizing samples consisting of the first 250 milliliters drawn from the water source that has been standing and plumbing overnight to identify the lead levels. Samples must be taken in accordance with the EPA lead and copper rule. Public schools and public charter schools and child care programs operating in facilities on or after January 1st, 1998 can conduct periodic testing for lead in the waters. As we know, newer schools are less likely to have lead in the water. So where we are now is making sure that all these child care, public charter schools, and public schools are on the same page when it comes to lead levels in our schools. So in this bill also, as we know in the original first bill, you had to be between 15 and 20. This bill establishes you have to be under 15 parts per billion, period. There is no in between the 15 to 20. I'm gonna let you test but still be over 15. No, you gotta be under 15, period. Like, and even then that's still too high, but we at 15 right now. So we're making incremental steps. You know, we're getting there. But if you do test over 15 parts per billion, you have to conduct lead levels per year, annually. You must immediately remove the drinking water source from services, and you must notify the Commissioner of Environment and Conservation, the Commissioner of Health, the local Department of Health, and the local governing body and the Commissioner of Education within 24 hours of the result. 24 hours. Parents and guardians of students enrolled at the public schools, public charter schools, or child care program in accordance with a notification policy developed by the local board of education must notify them within 24 hours of the result. It must allow the local Department of Health to inspect the site of the drinking source to confirm that the drinking source has been, in fact, been removed. We must develop a mandatory plan of action within 5 days of the notification. And then also make sure that you retest the lead levels of the drinking water within 30 days instead of the 90 days that was in the original bill. So we're cutting down the retesting from 90 days to 30 days that was originally put in SB 19. So that was a mouthful, but that is HB 2017. So we're just building on what was already established, and which is, and let me, put a pin there for a moment. And I want to explain, people don't understand how the legislative process works a lot. Sometimes when you get very strong bills such like this that are developing new programs and are requiring departments to mandating that they do certain things, it's really hard to pass legislation like that. So the fact that we were able to at least put something in place and then build on that is kind of how the legislative process works. Sometimes we may not get the full win that we want the first time, but sometimes we just want to get the door open and at least let us get a seat at the table instead of making sure we chairing the table. So, that is the cool thing about this bill is we're able to build on it. Also, let's think about Tennessee. Tennessee has a number of different types of school systems. We have our very urban school systems like Shelby County Schools and Nashville Metro Public Schools and Knoxville, which these are large cities with a vast number of schools and large local school districts. And then we have more suburban school districts such as your Germantowns and your Cartervilles and, those type of school districts, the Williamson counties of the world. And then you have very, very rural, small school districts who oftentimes have less capacity based on the size because they're in very more rural areas where there's less people, less students, smaller population. So when we think about the state of Tennessee in its totality, a lot of times we are not able to establish a cohesive plan because of the different type of school systems our state has. And so what this bill is trying to do is ensure that despite the fact that we have all of these different school systems, we want to create a unified level that we want to keep our schools under when it comes to lead testing and lead in schools. To me, there should be no lead in schools, but better small steps than trying to take it all on. So I'm gonna put a pause there and kind of let you respond, but that is the nitty gritty of the legislation.
Yeah, and we had a question that came up in the comments about a fiscal note. So I know there was a lot of back and forth around when the bill was introduced. It was introduced without a fiscal note. We have to understand the reality of the state of Tennessee. The state of Tennessee is a majority conservative state. And oftentimes when you are trying to get a bill, especially a bill that's around environmental justice, because that's what it is, it is so hard to get it passed if it has any type of financial implication. So someone in the comments also mentioned that it's going to take a concerted effort between state and local government. I also want to add in, we need some support from the federal government as well. Now, one win that specifically happened in the state of Tennessee, the EPA has been a little bit more giving on the lead prevention side. So the state of Tennessee got over $600,000 to actually go toward child care facility testing. That is a huge win. So when we talk about really being scared, like, man, we don't want to not include child care facilities, not again. So thinking about
that process, like how that federal impact definitely impacts some of the legislation that you see at the state level. I also want to add a piece that talks about a really unique setup, specifically here in Shelby County. So London mentioned that the bill was actually introduced in 2018. The bill was introduced by current mayor, and it's a black man, hey, the current mayor of Shelby County, Tennessee, Mayor Lee Harris. While he was state senator, he actually introduced that bill. It was monumental. It should have got a whole lot of press.
It should have.
You know how they do us. The fact that you have a black man that is from Memphis that was able to get a nonpartisan bill passed around environmental justice and
Oh
keeping in
yeah.
fact that at a place like Shelby County, we're going to be the most impacted because we have to take into consideration, one, we're a large quote unquote urban city, and then the majority of black folk reside in Shelby County. So that was a huge win. Now with current Mayor Lee Harris, he took it a step further. So I had an opportunity to connect with the mayor, which is amazing. I hope that everybody is getting into the fact that, you know, when you are a resident of Shelby County, your elected officials are very much so accessible. And so Mayor Lee Harris actually introduced what's called the Lead Prevention and Sustainability Commission through the county. And so with this particular community-led group of citizens, essentially we help to advocate to support the longevity of this lead prevention program, to make sure that we have a voice and can connect with representatives like Representative Lamar, where we can essentially advocate for what we want. What do we want, right? So have a voice, created our own seat, our own table, to make sure that we don't lose momentum with that bill. So I'm really excited that the leadership in Memphis is really representing the progress that's needed across the country. We had another
Absolutely.
question that
So
says,
yeah,
oh,
say that
sorry.
again. I was
We have a
saying
question that says, does this include home daycares or just child care facilities? So yes, it would include both.
if they are certified by the state in this piece of legislation. If they are certified by the state, then they are included. Also, there was a question asked, how much does lead testing usually cost? Right now, because of the original bill, it's per the district, so we don't know what that looks like on a state level, because right now the legislation establishes that local LEAs come up with the program. So that's a question that we need to ask SES to figure out how much they're paying for the testing or how much the county is helping around those costs. But right now, our legislation to establish a statewide program or a unified codifying it statewide right now has no fiscal note. So that's kind of
Yeah,
what the answer
currently
is.
in Shelby County. In Shelby County right now, Shelby County government is not currently allocating funding towards testing. I can tell you that right now. So that clearly has to change. You know, that's a quick way for a bill to lose strength is if it's not properly sourced and funded. So that's also something that we're also advocating. I love that London mentioned the fact of understanding the democratic process and understanding how local, state, federal government all go hand in hand. So that is another layer of advocacy. If you are from Shelby County, if you currently reside here, you're an official Shelby County resident. The Shelby County Board of Commissioners are in the process of looking at budgets right now. So this is the opportunity, if you feel like this is something that is really important to you. I mean, this is a dynamic call to action to make sure, you know, that locally we are supporting our school districts so that they can actually not have to foot this bill to make sure that our children are protected. So definitely, you know, do some advocacy at people. Be nice though and diplomatic. But definitely that's something that we need is that local funding. All right. So we talked a lot about this bill. Let's see, we got another comment. Let's see. So we had lab testing used to be completed on a child's school physical. Now this is a good one. All we need to do is add it back to the requirements for entry to school. So that is definitely a whole nother conversation and
Yeah.
that needs to be addressed. So I can tell you just from my research that the state of Tennessee, and not to pick on Tennessee, but states across the country do not do a good job of collecting data around blood lead level tests. So again, there is not a state statute, there is not any federal policy that requires that a state or a local jurisdiction actually reports this data. Now, sometimes depending if you get some type of federal dollars, there may be a requirement that's associated with that funding. But the only thing that we have that will give us a little bit of teeth, and this little baby teeth, is EPA guidance, right? So there's not anything that is in place that enforces that that data has to be provided. So there definitely a lot of babies out there and grown people too that have definitely been exposed to lead. That's why so Representative Lamar has to work within her power to make sure that at least from a state to local perspective that is being mitigated as much as it can be. So whoever that is, you are lit with all of the phenomenal questions and thought-provoking
Yes.
discussions. Come through on the Instagram Live.
Yes.
So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit. So you mentioned in your introduction that you are one of the youngest or the youngest representative in the state of Tennessee. So not, you know, in West Tennessee or Shelby County, but in the entire state of Tennessee. And then on top of that, you got your Black girl magic as well. Kind of
With the
talk
curls
about,
too.
yes, kind of talk about like what your experience has been.
Oh,
Again, Tennessee
Stephanie.
is a tough state. Hey, Miss Love.
Yeah.
Hey, SES in the house. Thank you for adding it to the legislative agenda, Board Member Love. But can you just talk to us about what that experience is like? I know Black women we've been lit, but it's like we lit in the political landscape. And so I just like to hear just what your experience it has been and any advice that you have to young Black women who are interested in taking up the space, because we're always saving this whole country as Black women, and it's time for us to have those seats of power. So I put that back on you.
How do we have an hour or so? But I'm gonna try to make it concise. But you know, being one of only 3 Black women in the state house, I'm one of 3 Black women, the youngest by like 31 years, and it's definitely difficult. Not only am I Black, I'm a female, I'm a Democrat, and I'm young. So I have 4 strikes against me every time I go to work. And so I oftentimes have to work twice as hard to just be half as good. And sometimes it get exhausting. I remember walking into the legislature, and everybody knows I came in with this huge heat over me about my comments and things like that. And I remember they never let me pass not one bill my first year. It didn't matter how good, how much I rewrote it, how many meetings I conducted. It was told that in backroom meetings, she will not pass a bill this year. She won't. And they didn't let me. But I decided, of course, as a Black woman, we don't give up and we find other ways to keep pushing. And so with some of the bills that I felt like would have been good enough to pass if I didn't have to overly prove myself, they sent to summer study. And so, you know, my first year, I was trying really hard to pass these bills. Some of my most important bills got summer study. I just found out I was going to have a baby, and I was just like stressed out. So I come in over the summer, constantly working on this legislation. And I appeared at these summer hearings, you know, fat as I don't know what, tied, high, feet big, but making sure that I was able to.
You weren't fat, you were thick.
Thick, whatever, you know, but despite then, I proven to my legislators that you can't because you make it hard for me doesn't mean I'm going to give up. I'm still going to keep trying and trying and trying. And so this summer I had to come in, to some hearings and represent my bills and represent all the research. And I had to host days on the hills, even at the summer, with groups to advocate for these bills. I had to go meet with legislators again, and I did all of this work. So at a certain point, my colleagues had to say, well, I guess she is who she is. She won't bend, she won't fold. Maybe let's really give her a chance. And so this year I was able to come in and be able to pass legislation. I probably passed more bills than most of my Democratic colleagues. And all of my bills passed unanimously on the House floor. And so what my colleagues told me was, we've gotten to know you. We appreciate, we see how hard you work. We can't call you young and not qualified no more. You are just an amazing legislator. And so now I'm able to, like, when I step in front of my colleagues to present a bill, they see me more than just a Black woman. They see me as one of their equals, just because of, you know, I had to get a little haze my first year. They had to show me who they felt like is boss. But again, as Black women, as my friend Alice say, we don't fold. And you know, and that's and it's hard. And so I'm giving you that example to say, as a Black woman, your path to leadership is not going to be easy. You getting that win is not going to happen overnight. I got the door slammed in my face constantly, but I kept kicking it back open. And that's what you have to do. And don't get me wrong, the first time they said no and sent me, I cried in the hallway because my feelings were so hurt, because I was thinking to myself, I've done all of this work and you still won't see me for who I am. But at the end of the day, that's just how the world has had to treat us. And we've had to just evolve and just be strong. And sometimes it's tiring, but you know, I promised my district I was a fighter and I wouldn't give up. And that's who Black women are. We don't give up. We fighters. Right. And nothing to us has ever been easy. Nothing in life has ever been easy. But if we stay persistent and we stay focused and we don't take no as the final answer, we too will prevail. And so I now have been able to form really sustainable relationships with a lot of my colleagues. And again, most of the stuff we don't agree on, you know, like I'm a Democrat. We're in a supermajority Republican state. I'm deaf, but it also has taught me. So here's the lesson. You know, because I'm a Democrat and the Republicans are pushing a certain issue doesn't mean it's a bad issue. I have come to be open to listening to everything before I say, oh, I'm just not going to vote for it. So the same way I don't want them to treat me, I don't treat them the same way. And so sometimes they have really, really good ideas. And I'm like, I agree with it, you know, and especially when it comes to Black folks. And I've always said this, everything progressive is a progressive for Black people. And when I mean progressive, well, everything that these white-led organizations that claim to be Democrats or socialists and all this other stuff, while many of their policies we like, not all of them are for us, because I believe in equity, not equality, okay? And so when I think about the people I'm truly advocating for, they look like me. And so I'm very clear on what I support and why I support it. And I think about the implications of these particular issues. So I'm going to give you an example. This permitless gun bill. At first I'm all like, oh, ban guns, you know, no. But at the same time, you think about Arby in Georgia, who just got shot down running. What if he would have had his gun on him running?
Right.
Maybe he wouldn't be dead. Or what is the fact that it's actually Black folks who are always the ones not being able to access the Second Amendment rights? Who is it really to stop? So while there needs to be measures put in place, now, because I'm getting older and I'm really thinking about, okay, the long-term implications of these bills and why people are pushing, I'm like, wait a minute, just because, you know, the parties say don't advocate may not benefit us. And so it's also going through that first year has taught me to be to think more critically about how we push legislation and how it's actually going to benefit our community. So that was a lot, but my message to the Black girls is just to keep shining. It's not going to be easy, and you're not going to get the yes the first time, but you got to keep going and keep going and keep going.
I really like the point that you brought up around engaging across the aisle. So I want to give a real quick anecdote. A lot of the people who are viewing don't really know me, but that is definitely not my ministry. Just based on just the way, especially as a Black person, growing up in Memphis, that's just not how we ride. But I had an opportunity about 3 years ago to meet one-on-one, y'all. Like, it was me and like two other people that sat down with the legendary John Lewis. And one of the first things that he said to me was, if you want to get this type of bill passed, if you want to get this passed, you're going to have to engage on the other side of the aisle. And the people who were in that group with us, because we're all young people, we're all Black folks, young Black people, we were like, what? Like, did not expect to hear that. But thinking about in the state of Tennessee with this bill even existing is a big deal. And the fact that it was not a partisan bill, there are literally barely 10 states in the entire country. Okay, we got 50 states. It's barely 10 that even have mandatory testing for lead and water in schools. So when you talk about like what progress looks like, it's not a sprint. I'm gonna sound real churchy, but it's marathon.
Right.
And I think it's really important for us, especially as young people. We got to keep it real. Millennials like quick. Like it's taking too long. Like, for
Girl,
example,
I got so much to say about that.
When we talked about the fact that, you know, we're advocating for the lead levels to be at 15 for the threshold of action as opposed to 20. Of course, like, Black millennials from Flint got like punched. Like, why would you advocate for 15 parts per billion? That's way too high. Okay, but what do you say about the 20 parts per billion? What did you say when this bill didn't exist at all? So that's not to ever implicate, you know, that we think that any level of lead is safe for our children, but it's a process. And so it definitely, you know, even outside of the realm of not being an elected official, even from an activism perspective, it's really important to understand the full process, to be optimistic. This is not for the weak, child.
It's
it is
not
not
for the weak. Okay. And that's why I try to tell millennials all the time, especially the ones running for office. God bless their heart. You know, I tell them the story. I lost the first time I ran for office. I attempted to run for state rep in 2016, and the timing wasn't right, and I decided not to do it. So my path here wasn't one day I woke up and I want to be a state rep in 2018. No, let me tell you, back in 2014, I lost a state level race. I decided to build a state organization. So I became the Tennessee Young Democrats president for 4 years to prove across the state that I'm able to handle state level programming. And then I was able to run for office. But all of these things I had to prove to myself. I had to prove to my community I can be a trusted asset, that I can lead, that I can handle higher level operations and programming and bills and lobbying and campaigning, in order for people to truly believe that I was someone who can handle being a state representative running for office at 27 years old. And so, you know, at the end of the day, when I go back and think about 2014 and I look at the things I've done, I wouldn't vote for myself then, you know, and that's me growing to say that like I wasn't prepared. As qualified as I thought I wasn't. What have I really done? You know, and so I decided not to just, if I really want to be in elected office and really want to advocate for my community, I have to prove to them that I'm someone they can trust to do the work. And so I think that what that has done is made me a better legislator, because I've had all of these experiences, you know, not only that, even in my career working for an education advocacy organization for 2.5 years, then moving to working in reproductive health and being able to advocate and lobby for legislation on a local, state, and national level. You know, I'm adding these things. And so when I was able to run for office, my community was able to say, well, strong schools, or what have you done, young lady? Well, when I worked here, I did work with charter schools. I worked in public schools. Oh, what you know about healthcare? Well, I advocate for maternal health rights for Black women because we dying, and I did this, and that, and I talked to our U.S. senators, and I did, and so when I walked into the state house, I didn't need to learn the legislative process. I got in there and started working, despite the fact that they didn't want to hear me. Then also, another point I want to get to our young Black people, because you may be the smartest person in the room don't mean nothing. Do people like you? And so what I had to learn was, I know I'm smart. I know I'm qualified. I proved my leadership, my district, elected me, blah, 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 blah. But now, how do my colleagues feel about me? And so they already had a tainted relationship. Instead of giving up, what I did was I worked really hard with building relationships with Republicans on the other side of the aisle. Some of them are really, really close with me. And we may not be on the same page at committee, but behind the doors, they fixing my coffee, giving me water, giving me hugs, loving on me, because they realize I'm a good person. So they see past the fact that I'm a Black woman. They see past the fact that I'm young. They see past all of these strikes I have against me, walking into the room and see me for she wants to do something good for her community. And that takes time. It's not an overnight process. One of my favorite rappers, Jeezy, always says, trust the process. And I do. And I've become more patient. And so even with this bill, when I was first presented this bill, I had the Superintendents Association come to me. I've had, other people to give me their opinion, and we may have to mend a little bit to not all of it, but you make sure everybody's happy. And that's how relationship building works. And so I just want to encourage young people to trust the process, be patient. You may be young and people may be skeptical, but prove them wrong. And even though you have to work twice as hard to be half as good, it makes you a better person in the long run. And when you do get there, you will win. Trust me. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, so that is a perfect segue. So, thank you for dropping all those gems about the process, the good, the bad, and the ugly of being an elected official, but especially being a Black woman and also serving as a public official. Now, even though, I am here for all of the young
quick
people.
Shout out. State Representative Attica Scott from Kentucky just joined the room. Hey, sis. Yes.
Hi.
Hey, girl.
Make sure that y'all follow us on Black Millennials for Flint. We already know that Representative has, I don't know how many followers, but stay engaged with us. We have some really good content. But one of the things that is happy, yay, I'm glad it's happening, but then also it's okay, let's pause. So a lot of millennials are really interested in getting into the political space, but everybody seems like they want to run for office. And here's the thing. So I love the fact that you really took us through your journey that got you to your seat, that got you into your elected seat. I know, for example, with me, I am not an elected official, but I would like to think that I have done a pretty good job with establishing a platform, with having the ear of our elected officials and really trying to push forward a Black and brown agenda. Because at the end of the day, from a community perspective, that's what we want. So what advice would you give to people who are interested in politics, but may not necessarily it's not time for you to necessarily run yet? What are just some people
I got something to say. I think that's a great question, because I think that's been one of my biggest issues when trying to work with a lot of millennials who want to enter the game is everybody wants to be the politician. And first, let me say, first and foremost, being a politician for the most part sucks a lot, because I lose my privacy. Everybody in my business, you get talked about, the good, the bad, and the ugly in the media in front of the whole world. Are you really ready for that type of scrutiny? You got to also think about the how much it costs to do this. I got to donate to this person to be relevant or support this person so they won't vote down my bill. It's very expensive. The loss of time with my family, like I don't get to see my friends and family as much, and I'm not so in tune their lives because I have to carry the load of 65,000 people in District 91. And while I'm so honored, and this is the greatest honor of my life being a legislator, it also comes with a lot of downfalls, you know, like even coming from Memphis and have to work in Nashville, that's an extra expense because I'm here in Nashville now and I have to buy an apartment. So that's another $1,700 out of my pocket a month. You know, like all of those things about exactly, but we only get paid $24,000 a year. So, you know, you got to think about like, can you handle not just the title, but everything that comes with the responsibility of being a legislator? And so I also just want I try to explain that to people. Like, I understand y'all see the pretty stuff. You see me getting the awards and all this other stuff, but you don't see me penny pinching and doing this so I can make sure that I can still do this work. And being young, you know, we ain't corporate America CEOs and making hundreds of thousands of dollars yet, especially like some of my white colleagues who come from more privileged backgrounds, who have big businesses, who are older, who are lawyers and big insurance. Like, they got money just sitting. You know, Black folks, we always, you know, we get even my fundraising, I'm like one of the least funded legislators in the General Assembly. Like, when I think about like my white colleagues, they can host a fundraiser, get $100,000 easy. Me, I'd be happy if I walk away with $2,000, you know, and that helps me be able to like be here and there and do the things I need to do in order to push my legislation and continue to communicate with my community. So that's there. I just want to kind of give you the other side of what my personal life looks like as a legislator. But I want to tell young people, it's not all glitz and glam trying to be the politician. We need people in every single aspects of policy and agenda. What that means is I need the activists. I need them protesting and bringing attention to the issue. I can't be an activist. I got to be a legislator. But I need them to write. I need you over here. So don't criticize me for having to be silent, because once you agitate, I'm going to cut the deal over here. Cool. I need my attorneys. I need people to defend us in the courtroom. When it comes to like policies that are passed that may be unconstitutional or may hinder the Black community, who's going to take it to court to get it struck down? We ain't got no lawyers. Who is going to advocate or let me know about this policy if I don't have no doctors or health professionals in the community? Like, I couldn't do this without the nonprofits or the organizations like Black Millennials for Flint. How would I know that we need to bring it down or we need to amend this legislation if it wasn't for you and your platform and everything we doing? This legislation wouldn't have been brought forth, or we couldn't move it. What about the people we need to be organizing in the community and teaching the people every day how to get engaged in the political process? I need you too. I need the party chair people. I need the Democratic Party chair folks, those running the parties, to do what they do to make sure our election process is fair. You know, so everybody has their role, and we got to be okay with not necessarily being the one in the spotlight. We always trying to be the one in the spotlight. And that's one thing I have learned from the white community is they got everybody in every position, and they don't care about having to be the one in the spotlight, because 9 times out of 10, we ain't the one in charge. Honestly, it's the one with the fat pockets. It is our biggest donors. It is the one funding these operations. It's the one sitting up at the top of the sky, the AT&T building, sipping his tea, writing checks, who's the biggest and baddest man in the room. So let's just think long term about what a true Black agenda is. I'm here to be a lawmaker. I'm here to push laws and laws only. I'm not here to be the activist. I'm not here to be a lawyer. Even though some of our politicians are lawyers, I'm not here to run Black Millennials for Flint for organization. I'm here to work with you so that we can push an overall agenda. And that is what we got to get back to. And that's the hard conversations we got to have with our community, and especially our young people. If we don't want to make the same mistakes our grandparents did, and with the same reason we complain and saying, oh, they didn't lead, they didn't mentor, they couldn't get on the same page, they couldn't blah, 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 blah. But if we don't have this conversation, we're going to be just like them.
Right. Woo! Yes, yes, sis. You better drop off these gems. And so I really like the whole theme around kind of like knowing your role. Um, if anybody knows me, this is my favorite phrase is know your ministry and know what's not your ministry. So for example, I am Team Aries. I am a fire sign. And if you know a good Aries, baby, we'll pop off.
All my
Where
best friends are Aries, by the way. All of them. Y'all are
yes,
something else.
so we can you be loving and have a whole lot of passion, but you have to have a whole tribe that's around you to kind of rail you back in. You know,
Hmm.
everybody plays a different role from a spiritual perspective, from a supportive perspective, and then also just from a strategic perspective. And you really hit on some excellent points around everybody kind of just scrambling, trying to do the same things. Like, what are you good at?
Right.
And then whatever you're good at, how do you do that to like make this work for the greater good for the culture, for the people? So I think about just the story of Black Millennials for Flint, where we had shout out to Ken of Worlds, a Mythian who did our whole brand. The same brand that we have right now is the one that, you know, my brother, my frat, was able to support us with. Now, he's not going to be, you know, holding up signs, you know, and being on the front line in that same way, but he is still very much so an integral piece to this movement. If you are a communications person, meaning that, you know, you can get all these followers with one post, you know, if you got the hookup with various people in press, because good press is so important. It's so
Girl, you
important
hitting
to
on
get your
gems.
cause
Cause
elevated.
yes, that is so, you hitting gems right
Listen,
now. Yes.
yes. So I think, you know, especially thinking about like the whole spectrum of millennials, where yes, the oldest millennial will be 40, but we still have millennials that's in their early 20s. And so even what I'm learning is I have to make sure that I am connected with the 20 something year olds, right? And we have to make sure that we are pouring into Gen Z because they grown too. Not all of them, but some of them are also grown. And you're exactly right, where, okay, we've been spinning this narrative as millennials that the boomers and Gen X didn't pour into us. We definitely have to make sure that we're not doing the same thing with those folks that are coming behind us. And so that's why it's so important. And you are just such a blessing, Representative Lamar, to feel comfortable to be transparent about the process, to really talk about like, y'all, let's keep it real. This is what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we
It's
all
not
are
all glitz and glam.
it's
You know,
not like
and I think the
never
beautiful thing
love.
about our generation is we appreciate people being more authentic. And I try to
Yes,
bring that to who I am as a legislator. I try to bring my lived experiences to the forefront for you to understand why I am like I am and why I'm pushing for what I'm pushing. And just like, you know, everybody knows I lost a child at full term. And, you know, I was always pushed for maternal health issues. But the way that my legislators see me now when I walk in the room and talk about it is I bring that when I walk in the room, I bring that with me. And so it's different. It makes a difference in how I legislate and how they see me. And so I say bring your authentic self to the room. Let people know, like let them see your struggles and who you are so they and they have more respect for you. You know, I think that sometimes we see a pretty picture all the time, and it's not. Like, I'm an ugly canvas behind the scenes, okay? And I battle the same things normal people battle. I battle depression. I battle anxiety. You know, I have insecurities. I got a temper sometimes, but you know, my heart is pure, and these are why I do these things. Girl, I'm a Capricorn, so you know, like
yes,
I get it. And so I
yes,
think that I would love that young people being a more authentic. And so I think that we need to embrace that and show a lot of grace as in their struggle to grow. And I'm working on showing a lot of grace to other people too. So I'm a work in progress as well, and especially being young and just still trying to find my way. Even though I'm a legislator and I know all of this policy, legislative process and stuff, I'm still a woman. I'm still a young Black woman who are just trying to make it and trying to learn. I still want a man too, and I'm still trying to go through the struggles of dating and just trying to find my way. But I think that that's what most people appreciate most about me is my vulnerability and how I bring my lived experiences to the work. And so even Black Millennials for Flint, seeing the lived experiences of these children starting off in Flint with the lead crisis makes it real for people. When you talk about lead in schools, like, no, let's look at Flint, Michigan and what's happening there. Let's look at how these children are dying. Let's look how we poisoning our kids. And then you look at me in my face and tell me no then.
Yes. Woo! You better say that.
Girl,
And
God been
I think
working on me. I'm telling you.
one of the things that you hit on that I think is so important is I think that you really humanize the work. And especially like when you talk about, for example, like reproductive justice. And so why it's important for us to work collectively is, okay, even though like with Black Millennials for Flint, we don't necessarily have a platform that is around reproductive justice in the same way that you would see in some of your organizations that are solely dedicated to women's and women's health. But we want to make sure that we are interconnected. Lead is so pervasive.
It's so intersectional. Yes.
I mean, everything just overlaps. And so when you mentioned like your platform was about healthy families. When you talk about healthy families, you're in jeopardy if your environment is not clean. When your water, has lead, when your housing has lead, if your school where your babies go to school where there may be potential lead exposure, all those things have to be addressed.
Or even the pregnant women at home who have lead in their homes and they're drinking that water and exposing it to their babies and their tummies. Problem.
Yes. So if y'all didn't know, if you are a woman, I'm going to start here from the beginning. If you are a woman and you have any exposure to lead throughout the duration of your life, when lead first enters the body, it first kind of exists in your bloodstream. It is then absorbed in your bones. Now, that can happen like when you're a small child, right? When you grow up, you decide that, you want to have children. If you have lead that was absorbed within your bones, while you're pregnant, your bones become a little porous. And so that lead that was stored in your bones is now released back into your bloodstream. Guess what? Now it can impact that baby that's born inside of you. If you deliver, now you're talking about the impact of breastfeeding now with that lead exposure. So it gets really deep, but it takes the relationship building that London that you talked about with making sure that, and I know a lot of times from an activist perspective, you have to really be strategic. Yes, you can definitely get pissed. I'm pissed that this exists. I am hurt and I cry and I shout about what is happening especially in Black and brown communities around environmental justice. But what I can't do is attack those people who are in seats of power, because guess what? And I wanted to mention that shout out to board member Love representing Memphis Shelby County Schools. People hold grudges. They do. They hold grudges. And if I came for you,
I do too. I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
If I come for you on social media wrong, if I see you in a public setting and I come for you, wrong, you think that people gonna forget that? And so when it's time for me to elevate aspects of my agenda, even though it's for the greater good, you still represent the face of your movement and whatever you're advocating for. So I think that that is really powerful to just think about how everything is so connected. So
Absolutely,
connected.
absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a great point that you made, because the worst thing you could do is blast a politician on social media or the media, and you haven't had a conversation with them or something to that nature, or they don't know your perspective. And you know, I used to be one of those people when I was younger, and I've grown and I've learned, and I'm on the other side, and I've had to go back and apologize to a lot of people. But I'll say everything can change first with a conversation. All it takes a lot of times is a conversation and trying to work two things. And sometimes you don't necessarily get on the same page. Most time with my Republican colleagues, and I'm blasting them in the media, I give them a heads up. I go to their office and say, look, I'm pushing this issue. We already talked about this. We on different sides. This is why I'm doing it. I just want to let you know, I may blast you. Like, for example, I've been in the media with the Secretary of State about universal absentee voting. He know, like, people don't know that's my favorite dude on Capitol Hill. Like, I love Trey, okay? And we may not be always on the same page, and he's a Republican, but he like loves me. Like, he checks up on me, you know, and he knows I'm passionate about voting. Even if, and like this year, even though I couldn't get one of my voting bills passed, he gave me advice on like how to make it better, where even if Republicans don't pass it, you've hit so many barriers to make it will work. And so a lot of times it's like building those relationships, and you know, it's those things that kind of make it easier. And like, we're politicians, like we get having to take stances in the media and things like that. But a lot of times what I get frustrated a lot of times is like when young activists get mad at me for not being able to like
Go
yell.
in on people.
Yeah, go in on people, or I may not support your particular progressive candidate. I like somebody else. But do you know why I chose this candidate? Because to me, you know, like, all the candidates got flaws in my opinion, so you can't pick one flaw over the other. You know, I'm picking who I think is best for what the country needs right now, and what my community needs may be different what your community needs. And so, you know, just allow us the grace and the space to be who we are, advocate who we are. And don't get me wrong, there are times when we need to be checked and we're problematic. Don't, like, I'm not saying that, like, you know, I always tell my friends, check me, boo. But at the same time, you know, I think, again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, knowing your role and knowing, you know, that in this long scale Black agenda, all of us got our roles and all of us are doing different things and supporting different people to get what we need. And so I just, you know, just want to remind that, put that out there, and just, you know, encourage that for my folks in the advocacy space and going forth, like, you know, make sure that, you know, you just give grace, and that Black folks, we are so multidimensional. Like, there's not one standard Black woman, there's not no one standard Black man. You know, there's Black people, and I just want the system to work where Black people can thrive no matter who you are and what you believe.
Yes. So can you believe that we are at an hour?
For real?
I
I
know.
feel like this was our conversation at Cafe Olay that time.
I
After
know.
quarantine, girl, we gotta go.
You
Okay.
gotta get it.
Thank you,
So,
Councilwoman.
yay!
Michael
Yes,
is on.
the Memphis women are in the house. I
Hey.
see DC in the house. I see Alabama in the house. Last words, Representative Lamar. How can people rally around HB 2017, making sure that our babies got lead-free water in the schools?
Yes, that's a great follow-up question. So I will be putting this amendment on notice and the bill back on notice. As you know, we recessed in March because of the coronavirus. And so we will be reconvening in a week and a half. And on Monday, May 25th, is when K through 12 meets, which this is a committee that this bill goes through. So you have to put your bill on notice a week in advance. And so I'll be doing that probably tomorrow when I go to work. And what you can do is to email the legislators on the K through 12 subcommittee and ask them to support my bill, HB 2017. Therefore, they can hear your voices. They understand the dire need. You bring this bill to their attention. And so when I go to committee in a week and a half, I can have more support than I need. Also, just to explain the legislative process, this bill has to go through 4 hurdles, I think. So it needs to go through subcommittee, K through 12. It has to then go through full education committee. Then it has to go through calendar and rules. Then it has to go to the House floor. And if it passes the House, it has to go through the same process in the Senate committees and the Senate Education, Senate Calendar and Rules, and then to the Senate floor. It has to pass both houses in order to reach the governor's desk and pass. So I just also want people to.
We got 13 seconds. Oh, I didn't know they was gonna count us down like this. But thank you so much, Representative Lamar. If you're interested in getting involved and connected on this bill, DM us at Black Millennials